This is the Brella Community Services Podcast with Michael Morgan and Raj Sahota, talking about the I'm Still Me project, a support talk about dementia.
Welcome to number 7 of the Brella podcast series with my co-host, Raj Sahota, and Louise Taylor is sitting in with us as well. I'd like to welcome you both before we go to our very special guest. Raj, as usual, a lot of people will maybe only ever see this or jump on late. Can you explain the role that Brella has in the community and what it is you do so that people have an understanding when they hear Brella, here's what that means?
I'll do you one better and I'll have Louise let everyone know what we're doing.
Ooh, I like it.
Hi, good morning. Brella is taking dementia head on, and we have gone across southern British Columbia talking about dementia, bringing light to a dark subject, bringing hope where there's been fear, and providing answers when there's been questions. And we have touched, we think, more than 10 or 15,000 people with this directly and indirectly and over the airwaves. And it has been a phenomenal project sponsored or funded rather by Public Health Canada, which winds up, unfortunately, at the end of March. And we feel so strongly that this is something that should be ongoing, continue to be funded and supported from our provincial and our federal governments, and donations wouldn't hurt either. This is a silver tsunami that's coming at all of us. 1 in 5 Canadians is being diagnosed daily with dementia. We need this information out there to give people a place not of hope and to know that sources like Brella are here to help.
All right. And I concur with all of that. Just in case anybody missed it, if you have a few dollars, a good place to put your money is into the fight for light and hope for those who are with dementia and their caregivers. How do they do that again, Louise, one more time? How do they donate?
They can send us an e-transfer to accounting@brella.ca. They can send us, they can donate to brellasociety.ca. We've got a big yellow button on our website. It's just that easy. Press the button and go. And thank you.
Is there, I mean, if people have a few dollars that they're saving on something, will you take those few dollars? Is there any limit? Is everything welcome?
Everything, absolutely everything is welcome. And a benchmark to know is that it costs about $150 an hour to care for a person living with dementia.
Wow. That's good to know. And when you consider, Raj, that every 15 minutes somebody also is diagnosed, you begin to see some of the foundations of the rising tide called the silver tsunami. You've changed your look throughout these podcasts. You're now looking a lot like the Madonna. Tell us a bit about what you do. What brings you to this screen? What is your life like with Brella?
I am the manager of the day program in South Surrey, and I've also taken on the I'm Still Me project as the research and evaluator manager for it. So I'm out and about raising awareness about dementia, reducing the stigma about it. We're in local community centers, we're in care homes, we're here, there, and everywhere. In the month of January, we were on a local radio station. We were just in Victoria 2 weeks ago. So you'll see me out and about quite a bit, but we're trying to get that information of dementia out there. We're trying to raise awareness. We're promoting early diagnoses. We're talking about how you can prevent it or slow down the progression of it if you do have that diagnosis as well. And we're trying to focus and create safe spaces and safe communities where people with dementia feel welcomed, feel respected, and feel loved. Because at the end of the day, that is what it comes down to, is that they are still who they are, but just with a dementia diagnosis. Life is very different for them, and we need to be very understanding of it and just have more patience.
Everyone feels love, no matter what their diagnosis is. Huh?
Yes.
I like it. Um, Today's special guest, we've had some wonderful guests on these 7 shows. We really have had. And it's like the most amazing people drop by to be a part of it. And right at the top of my list of people that I adore is our next guest. I've known him for the better part of 40 years. Um, Before we show him, he always gets embarrassed when I puff him up, but he is deserving of being puffed up. He's in the Canadian Music Hall of Fame, recently inducted. He did many of the hit singles of one of Canada's most iconic and famous bands, and that would be Trooper. Who could forget Raise a Little Hell, Round Round, Ticket to the Show? I mean, these are big hits in Canada. And Frank was at the center of that universe as a bona fide rock star. Now, a little backstory before we go to him is Frank also was for many, many years a much revered music teacher. And Frank sees the world probably different from anybody else that we know because his world is mathematical. The music is precise. Few of us ever get to live with that kind of precision of music. And Frank is steeped in it, understands it, is a composer. And without further ado, we're going to go to him in his studio where he's graciously agreed to not only say hello, but I think that he's going to play us a little something so you can hear what he's up to. Frank, welcome to the podcast from Brella.
Thank you for having me. Just before we get going on that, it's interesting as a musician, you get access to various things. And just listening to the introduction, one of my former students runs a media company, and he asked me to write a song, and it hasn't gone further yet, so I don't know if they want it or not. But I was asked to write a song for the Alzheimer's Society, and because they have a theme, and my student wants to do a kind of a special performance out in a park with some local musicians. And I wrote a song.
We do too, by the way.
Oh, fine. I'll just change the lyrics. Same song. I've only written one song in my life. Anyway, the song I wrote was called "I Will Remember For You."
No.
Because it acknowledged and what you were saying was kind of triggered that memory of that song that. Yeah, okay, we love you. It's not making sense to you at the moment. Don't worry about it. We're going to take care of you. But we'll jog your memory as many times as you need us to jog, and for those wonderful moments when you do remember, we'll share that memory. And so I think it's a neat song. Anyway, so who knows? Anyway, so Michael, you said you're going to let me do some shameless self-promotion?
Well, that's the name of being on these platforms. We're doing shameless self-promotion. We need donations. You need people who will come and listen to your music. Let's combine those powers.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to play here, hopefully if I can master the technology, is the opening track on a unreleased album. And it's the opening track, and a lot of the songs talk about what it's like to be getting old. There's a song which is on YouTube now, called "Out to Pasture," which is the typical thing about the elderly, where they have nothing to contribute anymore and nothing to say, which seems like society is missing the boat there. Because I'm not only older, but I'm much wiser now than I was in the day. Anyway, so this opening track which is kind of an unusual thing musically, I think, for a rock tune, but it's pretty heavy-handed. But it's called "There's Still Some Life Left in Me," and hopefully you'll be able to hear it here and see it. I've done a video work in progress. I used to be an angry young man. Now I'm simply furious. I was looking for the master plan. Now I'm merely curious. Screw the world. Heard enough about death and taxes. Don't know much about much,
I know what the facts is. Got my feet on the ground, but the price by the pound never ceases to us down, and the lies still abound. Nothing signified by the fury of the sound. It's a wonder that there's still some achievements to be crowned. It's a downside world turned upside down. Got the job, got the stripe, toss the dice, feel the night, call the white, 'cause there's still some light left in me. In me. Knock me down, but don't count me out. I've still got what it takes to scream and shout. But the world is now love. I've still got life in me and hope in the love. Seen enough about war and hatred. And another peace plan will soon be ill-fated. Where there's a will, there's a way. If you've nothing else to say, let the dog hold sway. It's been sold by Mary Kay. Let the yes be nay. Let the press make hay. Another Trevor in the bay. It was in the news today. You can dock my pay. I will work no way. Got the job, got the stripe, toss the dice, feel the night, call the white, 'cause there's still some light left in me. In me. Ooh, we're left in me. There's still some light left in me.
I mean,
No, no.
again, Frank, you know how to knock it out of the park and keep it out.
Yeah.
Raj, what do you think of our guest?
I love it. I loved that song. My favorite line was, "What the world needs now is love, sweet love."
That wasn't originally mine, I'm afraid to say.
What the world?
The world.
Louise,
Well, it's new
Louise,
for
you're
me.
a rock and roller. What do you think?
I thought it was awesome, Frank. That was pretty groovy, man. I thought it was pretty great. And the world does need love, sweet love.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think
it's-
it's also, just so that you know, if I remember from our last conversation, Frank, you may be teaming up with some of your old trooper mates, select ones, and touring, and that may well involve, who knows, with September the 12th and Louise hot on your trail.
Well, I don't know. See, we did Tommy, the drummer, and Donnie, bass player from Trooper, the 70s Trooper, that when I was in them, were asked to play at the Rocket Norton's cancer benefit at the center, which we did. And we had a Ray Roper from Stonebolt covered the guitar, and Stonebolt's singer, David J. Wills, did a lot of the lead singing. And the response was very good, and a bunch of people have made noises about, you guys we could book you, and I think Donnie had a conversation with one of the promoters that does, sort of like Prism and kind of us geezer bands that are out,
Well,
and started
so what
talking
we're going to do,
numbers, and it sounded kind of interesting.
if that takes place, I'm sure, you and Louise will chat, but it certainly sounds like something well worth that could help Brella at their gala. Frank,
Absolutely.
aside from the many careers you've had as a writer and a video guy and a rock star, central to your life is your role as a caregiver. And that kind of brings us back to where Brella is, which is about caring for, acknowledging, and providing support for people who care for people. In Brella's case, it's with dementia. But caregiving isn't limited to dementia. It's a space. It's a service. It's an act of kindness and charity. What can you tell us about your acts of charity towards your loved one?
I wouldn't call it charity because it's, I think it's the through the thick and thin part when you sign up, and it's
Yeah.
just, and I maybe it's guilt, but I had so many years on the road where I wasn't where I should have been. If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't have. I would have stayed home and done something else. Maybe be a vet. I like animals because I are one. But my wife is was diagnosed, a couple of decades ago now with something called scleroderma. And it was a bit of a revelation. Well, it was kind of a relief because so many things had been affecting her health. Everything from hiatus hernia to vision problems to she would go to see a dentist because she was having one time her face just couldn't even recognize her. It was swollen, and we rushed her into the hospital. Uh, but at some point, the dentist said, "Oh, well, no, it's something to do with dental," and it turned out she'd already had a root canal there. There was nothing there to swell up, but it did. So all these different things were happening to her, and it was and an interesting thing, of course, she said, "I think my mom had all these things as well." So there's a genetic aspect to it, we think. But anyway, when the doctor said, "Oh, you have scleroderma," it was like, "Oh, and all these things that you're struggling with are that." And so that was kind of comforting to know. But the specialist said, "Well, there are two kinds of scleroderma. There's one that attacks the key organs and kills you very quickly within a month or two, and he said that's the preferable one because the version you have is going to just let you go on and struggle." And so that's what we live. And we each day we kind of take the best moments we can. Thank heavens for things like the orangutan jungle show, which we love, and nature shows and stuff that provide some enjoyment. But she's never free of pain and serious pain, and is on serious medications for it, and that becomes the biggest part of caregiving. I find the biggest struggle is just we're very fortunate we have a doctor. A lot of people don't, and a very good doctor and a very caring doctor, but just the bureaucracy behind it all. The government, of course, and it doesn't matter which one it is, um, they have this. They deal with things in such a way. For instance, with opioids. Well, opioids, those are those things that people on the street abuse, and we have to really monitor that. And it's like, well, if you're in serious pain and you require these medications, they have to be renewed every month pretty well. And and what happens is like you go through, it's like you're signing up for the first time. It's like, well, if there's 30 days in the month and we had 60 pills for two a day, we need a renewal now. Oh, well, we can't, it might be a day early. It's like, just renew it, please. And of course, if you've got 10 different medications, they all expire at the same time. Or, I mean, they don't expire at the same time. Sorry, I'm an idiot. And so it seems like every day of your life is just organizing, getting through. Like we have a doctor that deals with one aspect, who's only in 2 days a week. And if the medication doesn't expire on those 2 days, well, if we don't get it renewed, she'll be in withdrawal and really suffering. Please give us the medication, and the pharmacy's hands are tied. The government has recently loosened it up a little bit, but it just seems like fighting the system through it all is the biggest part of the struggle because it just adds so much stress, and it kind of like, why does it have to be like this? Some pencil pushers, well, you only get 30 a month or you get 60 a month. It's like, yeah, that's all we're using. We're not abusing. We're not selling it on the street. But it's like you're treated like, I don't know what. So I don't know. I'm ranting, aren't I? Am I ranting?
Not at all. Raj, I mean, does that sound familiar in the world of caregivers? These sort of hoops and hurdles that don't really help the caregiver. They bind their hands. Are you familiar with this story?
Oh, 100%. This is exactly what a lot of our caregivers are going through, whether it's with medications or trying to get their loved one into a long-term care facility. The biggest thing that we're finding right now is everyone's trying to jump through these hoops that they weren't aware that they had to go through. There's so much caregiver burnout out in our community right now because nobody knows how to navigate the system. It's, they think what they're doing is the best for everyone by keeping mom or dad or their spouse at home for as long as possible. And it gets to the point of where, it's now time for them to move on to a long-term care facility where there's 24-hour nursing care. They'll be better looked after, but unknowingly, they aren't realizing that there's actually upwards of a 2-year wait list to get in.
Right, yeah.
And it's that key information that people are not aware of. So they get to the point of where they're burnt out and they're looking to the health authorities for help of, hey, this is what's happening. I took care of mom or dad or my spouse for as long as possible. And now I'm getting burnt out. I don't know what to do. And they'll say, okay, well, get onto the wait list. And the wait list is 2 years. And just knowing that it's another 2 years of this struggle it leaves them feeling hopeless. It leaves them feeling, like they tried to do the best that they could and the health system has let them down. So getting the word out there of, the proper avenues, the proper people to reach out to, figuring out what to do. Brella right now currently is working on a new project, kind of a decision tree of you've been recently diagnosed with dementia, now what? Or it's your spouse or your family member now has dementia, what are your next steps? We found that was missing. So we're hopefully trying to fill that little gap, but it's these things that we're trying to do and we can't because we're based off of funds and grants. So it's where the donations of everyone comes in. And that's what we really, really need is we need more funding. We need more money to keep projects like the I'm Still Me project going, working on that new decision tree project. We're working with the local doctors in the White Rock area to do almost a beta testing, or they're going to be our guinea pigs, to see how helpful it is, if it works, and how we can disseminate that information and what we've gathered across BC and hopefully across Canada.
I was gonna
Frank,
say,
did you run into a sense at any time in this journey that you've had with your wife that there's a sense of, oh, well, throw them on the scrap heap? I mean, some actuarial person somewhere probably thinks,
it's not that. No, I don't feel that.
Good.
But the problem for me is that it's one size fits all. For instance, my wife collapsed and broke her ankle and went into the hospital and it was had to have a giant pin up her leg, which was just, of course, frightening for her. And but what would happen? They're a one size fits all, and they have to be, I suppose, and they have to be organized in a certain fashion. And so, when she was in the hospital, they would basically run I don't know, a 9 to 5 day with her. And the fact is, our schedule has become such that she pretty much sleeps through the day, and she may not get up until 4 o'clock. So they wanted to give her what I call her wake up medications at 9 in the morning. And I said, well, she doesn't normally get her wake up medications till, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And her bedtime medications happen about 7 in the morning.
Oof.
And yeah, so her whole schedule is, I say our clock is cuckoo. And anyway, and that works, and of course she very much wants to stay at home, and I've kind of committed to that. But and the system, though, to answer your question, will say, well, we can get you some help. We can have someone come in and help you. And I said, well, it would be really great if someone could come in and help her. You know, bathing is frightening just because she can pass out or collapse, and she's afraid of falling again because it was horrendous. Excuse me. And I'll say, yeah, and they'll say, oh, yeah, we can do that. And I said, well, it would probably need to be about 4 in the morning.
Oh, boy.
It's like, oh, well, no, our workers work from 9 to 5, right? I said, well, we're just not 9 to 5, and it's like, that won't work, so it's it's understandable, but the system can't be flexible, I guess. And so we just kind of soldier on. It's like, well, simpler just to carry on. And she tries to be really careful when she takes a shower, getting in and out of the tub, right? And it's funny because I'll say, well, why don't we get one of those walk-in things? No, 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 I don't want. It's like she doesn't want to admit that she's giving in at all to the disease.
That's pretty brave.
Stubbornness, yeah, yeah.
So, Frank, while we are talking about the things that you do, because obviously you're in what would be termed euphemistically your golden years. What are you doing? You showed me a video of you conducting a full orchestra, heavy on the woodwinds, or was it the brass? Tell me about what that is. That's in addition to your
Oh,
caregiving.
well, that's
In
my one
addition to
night.
your
I have one night out because
okay.
I stick pretty close to home, but Wednesdays I go in and and the great thing about it is my son is a professional level flautist and my grandson is an amazing tuba player. And when she's back from university, granddaughter is a wonderful bass clarinet player. And they all go in with me and perform in the Vancouver Concert Band. And that came about one time because I needed a ringer. Our tuba player had to leave somewhere on go abroad on a work schedule, and we had a concert coming up. So I said to my grandson, "Would you come in with do one rehearsal and then come in and do the concert?" He said, "Yeah, okay." So he did, and of course the repertoire we do is a little more advanced and it's more fun, greater variety. And so he said, I really enjoyed that. And so he asked his dad, "Can I join Grandpa's band?" And and then my son said, "Well, if I'm going to have to drive, he doesn't have his license. If I'm going to have to drive you to Grandpa band, I guess I might as well bring my flute and play." So we got the three of them there. So it's a really nice thing when they're able all to be there and play in Grandpa's band. We have about 70 members. And it's really good therapy. I get to browbeat these poor innocent people that they're just doing their best. And use all my nasty teacher tricks that I used to pull to motivate them. So that's a pretty nice thing. And I'll tell you frankly, I'm very fortunate. I remember decades ago, I thought, and I was in Randy Bachman's studio recording, and we had what's his name from the Beach Boys. So Carl Wilson was up, and we did a song called "What's Your Hurry, Darling" that I got to sing, that Randy and Carl wrote. And I was saying, I think I'll be quite happy in life if 20 years from now I'm still able to write and record music. That life will be pretty good.
And
And I,
so it is.
yeah, and so what I did at one point, I had a studio on Broadway, and I ended up in Richmond, and I thought, no, enough of this, and I set it up in my garage at home, which is where I am now, and it's great because I can just go down here and make music and record and work on the homespun videos that I do, and uh, and it's pretty good at keeping me sort of sane if I ever was. It really does help because I can kind of let go of the struggle we're having, it's and go into the music. And the Wednesday night is the same thing. Uh,
Tell me, Raj, I want to ask Raj, how important is music in the therapy that is provided for people with dementia?
Oh, music is very important. Music is actually stored in what's known as your old brain, and it's one of the last places where dementia will affect you. So music triggers memories, music triggers emotion, music speaks to people. We've seen it where somebody who has been nonverbal for a while will always sort of perk up, and you'll see this light kind of shine through their eyes. In one of the previous videos, we were talking with Roger Hope, and he was talking about how he would play certain tunes for his latest album with Deborah, and he would look for her facial reactions and how she reacted to it. And if it was a positive reaction, he kept it and he would add on to it. So music speaks when words fail, is pretty much what happens.
Yeah. And so it when you're treating people or you have people with dementia, it's part of your program.
Definitely. Not only just with dementia patients or clients, it's actually very beneficial for someone who has Parkinson's as well. So you'll see once they kind of get into those tremors and they're unable to make it across the room, if you put on music, you can dance them across and they won't freeze at all.
Wow,
Yep.
that's incredible.
It's literally magic. Music is magic. Music can change the way that you see life. Music can change the way that your mood is. Just, it's literally, you can listen to the words or you can listen to the notes and it will change your entire day.
The Vancouver Concert Band, many of our concerts are at seniors' residences. And it's wonderful because we do things like, a Glenn Miller medley or something like that. Although
Yes.
it's interesting, when I started conducting the band, I'll joke about this and say, "Oh, we used to do Vivaldi." I'm that old, right? And now and then we started doing big band stuff, and now of course we think we're gonna have to start doing rap songs because
Yep.
we're getting old. That's the old generation now.
I was just talking about that actually a little while ago.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny because our lead trumpet player and I have been writing our own arrangements just because it's hard to find stuff sometimes. And the stuff we're doing is Rolling Stones and George Harrison and the
Yeah.
Beatles. And in fact, and we've even I did an arrangement I was asked to do this by the Richmond Orchestra and Chorus last June. The conductor called me up and said, "Oh, I love Round Round We Go. Would you let us do it for our Pops concert?" I said, "Oh, that would be lovely." And he said, "Oh, will you do the arrangement?" I said, "Oh, okay."
Oops.
So I knocked off an arrangement, and of course you do it in a different key for strings,
Yep.
And I thought, well, I'm not going to try and do it like Trooper. That's dumb because they did it right like that. And so I thought I'm going to make this more like an orchestral work. So I got something called the bodhrán, which is an Irish or a Celtic drum, boom, 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 in six, and did it kind of like a British thing. And anyway, and so I wrote it, and the conductor came over to the studio because he lives in Tuas, and and he says, "Oh, did I tell you that we have a 40 voice choir that performs with us?" It's
Oh
like,
my.
oh, back to the drawing board. So I then added vocal parts, and they did that in June. Oh, and of course, then he said, "Oh, would you like to MC the show?" And well, if you like, okay. But I said, I got to warn you. I said, I'm not like your regular. The following work is from Opus something or other from some. I said, I'm, kind of not like that in my introductions, which at the old folks' homes, yeah, I'm just kind of silly with them, right? And they seem to respond well. In fact, I always at the seniors residence, I said, every time we play here at the end of the concert, people come up and say, "Oh, that was lovely, but you should really dump the band and go on stage just as a comic, right?" And of course, I throw that in the face of the band, of course. Uh, anyway, so that's my introductions are pretty goofy. Typical kind of Victor Borge stuff where it's like,
Falling off the piano stool.
yeah, yeah. Well, or this piece was written in three flats. One was in Leipzig, one was in London, and the other one was in Paris. Right? Terrible humor. My trumpet player will at the last rehearsal before a concert, he says, "Are you going to tell that one joke of yours?" It's like, whoa, I got more than one. I got at least one and a half. Anyway, but
Frank,
where was
before
I?
we go any further, because you're the only rock star we've had on this show and a celebrated one, a recognized one, a man with hits, gold records, and you've got that plaque right behind where you're right beside where you're sitting is your that you just got for being in the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. Have you
That one.
got it?
You know what? I could probably pull the camera around and the one that, yeah. Do you want
I
me
mean,
to?
that's a pretty important recognition on behalf of the country. But when you look back of all the years that you played in Trooper and played in various other bands,
Yeah.
if you had to come down to three moments that you would hang on to that really are so sweet and so juicy that they define the moment of how hard you worked, what would they be?
I don't know about Sweet and Juicy, but one of the most memorable was Two for the Show had just broken top 10, and we were opening for BTO in Vancouver. And we played our set, and people, it was okay.
Did I?
And then I start the piano introduction, do 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 dee da dum ba da dee, to Two for the Show, 20,000 people. Ah! And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So this is what it's like to be, a rock star kind of thing. So it settles down a bit. I finish the piano thing, and then it goes bra bum ba bum. In comes the guitar, dee da da da. 20,000 people, ah! And we can barely hear, and we're sort of, oh, we got to watch each other, make sure we're still playing in time because they drowned us out. Anyway, the guitar solo, it settles down a bit at the end of the guitar solo, and Ray comes in, Two for the Show, 20,000 people. Ah, and it was just like, oh, that's what it's like. And that
Yeah.
was the first time we'd sort of seen that reaction. You
But
don't
they
get
knew the
that.
words to the song.
Well, yeah, and well, as I say, it had just gone top 10. And
Yeah.
interesting enough, in retrospect, a significant number of the people that paid for those tickets came to see Trooper because of that song.
Wow.
It was interesting because we would get $800 for backing up BTO, and they would make 100 grand, and it was like, and we'd be after 3 weeks on tour in the States with BTO, the band was $30,000 in debt because we couldn't afford to go for what we were being paid. So it was like, oh gee,
What would be the second one? Second prime moment.
boy, that's uh oh, in Trooper still or.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, the
No, I'll tell
moments.
you other kind of neat moments. When Carl Wilson and Randy was at Randy's studio in Linden, uh, after we'd finished recording one night, we went downstairs because the studio was up in this barn, they called it. And Carl got a guitar out and started singing songs that had never been recorded, never made it onto a Beach Boys album, and they were so beautiful and the lyrics were so marvelous. And this was before cameras, and so it was just
Gone.
an amazing experience, but gone, and he's passed away since, of course. um,
Carl was the best voice in the Beach Boys.
I don't, yeah, probably, yeah, I don't know, yeah, he was an interesting
Remember, he
character.
was the guy who Dennis, not Dennis rather, but Brian decided should sing the solo on God Only Knows rather than Brian himself. That's
Yeah,
Carl. It's singing that
yeah,
solo.
yeah,
I
yeah, he had a
mean,
beautiful
probably
voice,
one
and
of the most iconic songs.
yeah, he just had acoustic guitar, and it was just beautiful. It was like, yeah, I'll never forget that experience. It was like, yeah, very few people would have been able
That's
to
a
have
moment.
that happen. Yeah, so that would be, I guess, number two.
And number three,
I don't think there's a number three. It was all horrible, I tell you. I'm just writing a new I'm just writing a new song now called, and obviously I didn't write these words. It's the best of time. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. The Dickens, you say? Um, and it's talked about life on the road, and it never so bad it can't get worse. Might want to curse, better to pray. The Dickens, you say? Anyways, so it's yeah.
Raj, have you got any closing things you'd like to ask of Frank before we let him go?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Well, I think it's been highly
Just anxious to
entertaining,
get
Frank.
me out of Dodge here.
No. We usually wrap around this time,
Yeah.
and we have worked you thoroughly. We've heard you
Mhm.
sing, we've seen your video, and we've heard an incredible story
Michael,
about you and your wife.
I had wanted to say that my observation as I get to this age is that so many of these diseases, afflictions, whatever you want to call them, they all seem to be related. Like MS and lupus and scleroderma. There's all these links, and it seems like if they can ever get to the culprit there,
Causation. Yeah.
that it's going to spread through all of that,
Yep.
and I did hear something about a new breakthrough in dementia medication. Do you guys know about that? I
Is
thought
it sound waves?
was that?
They're starting to utilize sound waves to help break up the plaque and protein buildup as well.
Oh, no,
Whoa,
that's cool.
that's right
So
up all of our alley.
music, there we go. Sound waves and music coming in clutch.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
there you go. Yeah, so
Is-
so
is,
there's hope. As I say, and for instance, my wife's older brother got MS, and it was just a terrible way to go. Just awful. And I was in a band called Body Electric, and we wrote a song called Judy's in Her Room. And the point of the song was that all these struggles and tragedies are happening behind a door, and it could be next door, and
Yep.
we don't know what's going on in people's lives. And if we could just sort of, be a little less judgmental and a little less sort of thoughtful, it would be a better world. Oh, don't get me going on the United States. Okay, no, sorry.
all right, no, we don't want to do that. Well, I think that we've come to a natural conclusion, and Frank, it's always good to see you. I mean, I will be the last man standing, calling you the genius you are.
Yeah.
Raj, I've enjoyed these podcasts. I hope we get to do many more. Louise, are you there?
I am.
You want to do a last pitch? What's that yellow button again?
www.brellasociety.ca. Hit the big yellow donation button. And thank you, everyone. It's been great.
It has. We've had a wonderful time. Raj, if the other thing doesn't work so well, you can always go into hosting podcasts anytime you want. You've got the skill, the look, the talent.
You got it. As long as we can get Frank back, we're in.
Oh,
Yeah, Frank is a very special human being. Thank you, Frank.
Oh, I'm very happy to. You got me out of bed before 2 in the afternoon. This is a miracle.
It's because you're a rock star, Frank.
That's right.
It's because of
All
our
right,
lovely.
kids.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
This was the Brella Community Services Society podcast with Michael Morgan and Raj Sahota. For more information, go to our website at www.brellasociety.ca.